Good evening. It's the 4th of September, 2024. This is the Planning Board meeting, first one in September. I'd like to welcome everybody, those of you on Zoom. This is a hybrid meeting. 3 items on the agenda tonight, all initial reviews. We'll start with attendance. We have 3 here, Mike West, Larry Simmons, myself, Ed Francis, and I think Nina Perlmutter was going to Zoom in.
I'm here.
Hi, Nina. Do we have any other Zoomers? Dave?
Susan attending.
Thank you. I like to keep track. First item is the affirmation of the minutes. I received a copy. There was a minor errata. Mike, are you okay with them?
Yep.
Can I have a motion, please?
I would motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Recording in progress.
All right. All in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
3 ayes here. Nina?
I approve.
Okay, so the minutes are approved. As far as attendance, George, by the way, asked last time to be excused. He's got some business he had to attend to, so it'll be just the 4 of us on the board this evening. The first item on the agenda is item number 240703, number 9 Cottage Ave. This is a continuation of an initial review. The applicant provided some additional information in the period since the initial review. Mr. Gallagher.
Good evening, and Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, excuse me.
Can you just remind us what the particulars are of the application and where we are with it?
Yes, so I proposed, not the previous planning board meeting, but the one prior to that, the beginning of August.
Yes.
I proposed that to the planning board that we receive approval. My wife and I own a home at 9 Cottage Ave. It's located in Goose Rocks Beach, and we would like to lift the home 8 feet from the base level or the ground level. It would be, I believe, 16 feet from the sea level. We are proposing to do this because we received quite a big impact from the January 15th storm this year. And we would obviously like to give ourselves some peace of mind, lift ourselves out of that potential situation again and out of the flood area.
Very good. And the additional information that was requested and you provided, can you just maybe summarize that?
Yes, so I amended the application. There were a couple mistakes on it as far as where the zone was. There was a question around the percentage of the lot that was occupied by other impervious objects. Working with Galen and Nadia, we were able to figure out what that percentage was, so I included that in the amended application. The board had also asked for documentation around the water line and the sewer line, which I provided. At the previous board meeting, there was a discussion around tree protection. I included a memo around tree protection and our desire to make sure that the trees that are located in the southeast portion of the property wouldn't be damaged during this process. There was also a question around what the work plan was. In a discussion with the contractor, I wrote up a memo on what the work plan would detail. There was also a suggestion by the board that I request a waiver for proposed floor change because there would not be a proposed floor change. And then I also included amended engineering plans and an amended survey. With the survey, the board had asked that the survey company identify some setbacks on the property, which they went back and created a new document. And then on the engineering plan, there was a question on location of base flood elevation. They were able to document that, so I included a new amended engineering plan as well.
Thank you. And just to clarify that tree statement, which I liked, by the way, also clarified that if even despite your efforts, you had to damage a tree, it would be replaced by one that was equivalent
Yes,
type.
yes.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I'll start with Nina.
I'm not the case manager. I think Mike is on that. I just wanted to make sure that we deal with the waiver. But I think the statements I saw were all correct, and the new survey seemed it satisfied me. But I would defer to Mike here.
Understood. Thank you, Nina. Larry?
Well, I appreciate the update.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry, I appreciate the update. The only thing I would suggest is that you ask your structural consultant to apply a lateral load that would occur during a 100-year storm, and just see if your connections, your GRK screws are adequate. I see you got the concrete base there, that's good, but you're still relying on screws to hold your column to the base, and just apply, so I'd like to suggest 100 pounds per square foot, which is going to be too much, but when you consider shape factors and impulse loads, I mean, it'll be an indication of how secure your foundation is. So, you know, there's other ways to connect a wood column to a concrete base, and anyway, just ask him to load up, you know, lateral load on both sides and then diagonally, and assess the capacity of your screws. I mean, it's up to you, but I would, you know, I'd at least take.
So you offer that as
Just a suggestion.
advice.
Just a suggestion, yeah.
Not a requirement.
Not a requirement, just, you know, you're
Lot of professional
ultimately,
experience.
you're ultimately going to, you know, live with the consequences of the detail.
I just want to be clear. So I had a long discussion with our contractor and went back to the engineers. He still believes that he would like to have wood mats and not concrete. So I want to make sure that I didn't give you the wrong engineering plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, wood mats, yeah, I see the wood mats,
Okay.
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, I see what he's doing, he's still building up wood mats, so, you know, just ask him to apply lateral load to the building and then assess what happens to the foundation. It might be okay, I mean, you know, but, yeah, he at least owes you that check, okay?
Yes.
And those plans are stamped by an engineer, correct?
Well, just double check the loading,
It
lateral loading.
is stamped by an engineer, correct?
Well, it says Criterium Engineers, I don't know, it looks like, yeah, Helen Caswell, Watts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
He at least owes you that check, okay?
Thank you.
And that's all I got.
Mike, what do you think?
Good. I just wanted one reminder of the waiver for the flooring change. What was that? I'm drawing a blank if I
So
recall.
what's going on now is that the code office, when they receive the application, are going through it against the criteria that's in 10.6C.
Yeah.
15 things that should be in a site plan application, and some of them, right,
Yeah.
are not applicable on a site-by-site basis.
Right.
The language that they're putting on is saying, we don't think this applies or is necessary, you should request a waiver from the planning board.
Okay, and I guess I was trying to figure out, I understand that it's basically the building being raised, so all we're doing is vertically taking the floor and sending it up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what was the requirement.
The requirement is that you provide, you say what you're doing with your floor, with your floor.
Okay,
How you're
all right.
using it, and the
It's
waiver request says,
Not a
I'm not
thing.
changing it, this is
Yeah,
not
okay.
applicable.
Yep.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure because I didn't recall that one. And then the only other one I had was the proposed lot coverage, I'm assuming is staying at 28% because it was blank on the application review, and again, because all we're doing is moving it up, we can't be changing the coverage.
No, but what I left it blank because there was uncertainty. After the building is lifted, we're going to have to reconstruct the stairs, is my assumption.
Yeah, but
And so what I didn't know is after the fact, what that actual percentage
Would be
would
because
be
of the-
because of the, it's one staircase that comes into the front door. And I don't know if that's gonna require more square footage in
I
impervious.
thought there was an exemption for stairs.
No. We're looking at it, but right now, no, there's not.
No, and I think what you've said in your application is that your before and after impervious surface is 40.5, right? You've summed these two figures, 28 and a half, on your plan.
Yes,
It says, there's a chart on there, and it says before and after is 40.5. So I think something's wrong if you're saying, but you're not sure. Because maybe I'll make it bigger. The stairs
Well-
might be bigger.
They have to be.
not bigger.
Well,
They
they're,
would-
they're
I would
gonna
ass-
be longer because you're going up higher.
That's my, yes.
Yeah.
So you're proposing an increase in lot coverage, is what I'm hearing.
Here's what I don't have. I don't have the actual plan for the staircase coming down. I obviously would like to keep it as minimal as possible as it reflects the code of the town, but I don't know exactly how much increased coverage I'm going to need, because it's gonna require, I think the code is gonna require that the stairs be longer, therefore I don't know the answer as to if that's gonna increase the, so I guess what
think
I'm
you
pointing
know-
out is I think I'm in a
I think
catch-22
what
here.
I'm hearing is that you know it's going to increase. You don't know by exactly how much.
I
is
think
what I'm
that-
hearing,
I think
but-
that's fair, yeah.
Yeah. I have a recollection, like Mike does, that there's,
There was something in there that stairs weren't counted, and
Stairs don't count as an expansion of a use. That's the only thing.
is that it? I
Yeah.
remember reading it.
but it still would
It still
count
counts as,
against an increase in impervious
Correct.
area?
So what he could do is decrease something
yep,
for whatever the size is, so decrease, say, the footprint of
The driveway?
the driveway or parking or walkways. So whatever you have to, if you're gonna keep it at 40.5, then
And I think
you have to add
Stuck with that.
10 feet, 10 square feet for extra stairs to give up 10 square feet of walkway or driveway or something,
Understood.
and balance it. And that should be easy enough to do. But if you're going up 8 feet, you're gonna have more running your stairs. It's just the way it is. But I guess if the commitment is to reclaim some of the drive or walkway or something into, back to or impervious or non-pervious or non-impervious. I don't know, water's gonna leak through it, whatever it is.
Pervious.
Pervious, there
Pervious,
we
yes.
go.
It's a weird word.
All right, colander, make it a colander, there, put that in. Then you should be good as long as you don't go over the 40.5 in
Okay.
total.
So that means we need a layout of the stairs.
Well, or a blocking in of the area,
Yeah.
not a layout of it, but I think I think that before we approve this, now that would be at the end of the public hearing and all of that, I think an update to the plan that showed an area where the stairs will be, it doesn't have to show their
and-
exact design, a maximum area.
Now, rise and run is fairly standard, you should be able to calculate that. If you know where your floor is and you know where your ground is, you've moved it up 8 feet.
Well, is it gonna
It's-
go straight out or
Yeah,
whatever, there's probably gonna have to be a platform on it.
But, yeah, depending on how high it is, you might have to have an intermediate platform. You know?
You will.
yeah, whatever
He's
for the
going up
code.
8 feet.
Yeah. So it'd be worth laying out the stairs, just to
Okay.
confirm.
Will do.
It seems doable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yes.
could cheat some out of the driveway and restore that to a nice, lovely flower bed, or,
Yes.
I know it's a small lot to begin with, right?
Well, you can make a condition basically that whatever the stair area is going to be, there'll be a reduction in impervious area.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I like
there you
that
go.
idea, Nina.
Yeah.
And that
Thank
way,
you.
we wouldn't have to have the plans updated necessarily by the end of this meeting. We could approve it with that condition.
Right.
Gavin, the code office okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great. Good catch.
Thank you.
Anything else, Michael?
No, I'm good.
I got one more thing on the application page. Maybe you could put an annotation on that proposed that just says TBD, not greater than, just something like that.
Okay.
Maybe not greater than.
Yes.
And up on the zone, it says GR10 now. It's, to the best of my knowledge, it's just GR.
Oh, okay.
The 10 was from the other information that was talking about the velocity zone or
So I think in the original application, I had AE 10. So-
AE.
So I think what I did
Whatever.
is I
GR.
put in GR 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't take the 10 out. So it should
So
it
lose-
should just say
lose the
GR.
10.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, so 10 years from now, when somebody pulls this,
Yes.
it won't have that obvious change. Okay, that's all I had, I think. Can I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve,
Complete?
or make the application as complete.
Finally, yeah.
Second
I,
that.
I would amend that to include the conditions and the waiver being approved.
Oh, I agree that the requested waiver is approved, along with all of the other waivers, Nina, that the code office suggested that they apply for. I'm not tickled
I
about
thought,
that
I
practice.
thought there was only one.
I believe that there may have been a waiver requested for topography.
You had the spot elevations though around the structure, so that should,
I
Oh,
think-
thank
Yeah,
you. Yes, I think we did
Yeah,
supply
we
that
caught
out after we had the conversation. Thank you, Galen.
Yep.
I think the board is happy with the information that's been provided against all 15 of the criteria at this point.
Yeah.
So if we just leave it at that, I don't want to get into the business. I'd like to avoid getting into the business of granting waivers on each of the 15 conditions that any application might have to provide. I think what the code office is doing is extremely useful advice. But I don't think a formal waiver is needed.
it says the planning board shall waive any of these submissions. That's,
I stand corrected.
Yeah, we have to approve waivers.
But is that at complete or at final?
That complete.
You can do it at either one.
and you'll do it in the finding of facts as well. You'll
Yeah.
read it as well. These are the waivers that were,
So what I'm trying to figure out is, do we need that now, or is the motion good enough to say it's found complete? Second, we can vote on it. And then catch the waivers in the finding of fact.
Nina, what would your preference be?
I can do it either way. If that's the way Mike wants to do it, that's fine with me.
We'll capture it in the finding of facts.
Okay.
There's a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike say,
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Ed says yay. Nina?
Aye.
Thank you. So the application's complete. We'll schedule a public hearing for this 2 weeks from today.
Wonderful.
And if you would, send to the code office that minor changes to that application before then would be helpful.
Will do.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you to the entire planning board.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that one's done.
The next item on the agenda is number 240704. It's for number 9 Cleves Ave. And it is, Mr. Phil Schuman is the agent, is here to speak to it. This is a continuation of the initial review.
Good evening.
Bill?
Thank you for having us back and reviewing the supplemental information that we provided the middle of last week. If you recall, our goal here was to get number 9 Cleves Ave out of harm's way as it relates to the water. They took on similar water damage last year's nor'easters. We had looked at initially just doing a lift, and then after an evaluation of the infrastructure of the property, we realized that a lift wasn't even really feasible. So the owners have opted with new construction. We had made an initial attempt to plot the property to meet the property setbacks, but that put us closer to that protected area. And not to be overly pragmatic about this, but Mr. Francis, I went back, I watched the film, and we went right over to Lower Village, and I sat with Deb, and I had a meeting with Galen, and we replotted the house essentially right back to where it currently is, as to not encroach any further on the protected area. And you can see in that updated site plan that we have
Shifted.
moved further away from the protected area than even the current house is. We have stayed within the current non-conformance. We have not become any more non-conforming than we were previously. We have lowered the amount of impervious coverage within the 75-foot setback and outside of the 75-foot setback. We have lowered the habitable volume within the house within the 75-foot setback and outside of it.
And outside of it.
So the house actually straddles the 75-foot setback line.
Right.
So during our last meeting, you had asked us to do an evaluation of the current property and the proposed property,
Right.
and the building volume that would be both inside that 75 and outside of that.
Right.
And we have done that.
Good.
As you can see with the updated plans, along with the calculations that we sent over. So we lowered our impervious coverage, kind of just to jump right to nuts and bolts there. We lowered our impervious coverage within that 75-foot setback area by about
32.
132 square feet there.
Yeah.
Essentially, what the homeowners had suggested after our last meeting was to basically, their top priority is to have the house, right? They are not concerned with any of the other current impervious coverages that were on the lot. So the portion of their driveway that was within the 75-foot setback, some flagstones, some steps, an outdoor shower. They basically said, get rid of everything, give us the house, see what we have left over as a starting point. And that's where we've landed today with going under by about 130, 132 square feet. So that was kind of the big ask on the part of the board at our last meeting. I feel confident that we've done that. I had a chance to sit with Galen after the plans were revised and kind of ask for his guidance as well and see if he feels comfortable with what we've done. And so that's where we are today.
Okay. Questions from the board? Can I start with Nina?
Yeah, no, I like the plan. I think it works better and it definitely takes more out of the resource protection zone. I assume that if you're going back into the old site plan, you're not going to be touching any trees or vegetation or anything like that. You're just lifting basically and building a new house. So.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Actually, in doing this, we're actually we're just inside of where that back deck is on the back side of the house. So we're actually going to be further away. There were a couple trees in question just off the back corner of that deck that we looked at some pictures during our last meeting. So we're further away from that now. And you are correct. There would be no vegetation that would need to be taken down or replaced. A pretty straightforward swap out. I don't know if Deb had marked this on the site plan, but on the new plan that you were provided last week, you can see the small portion of the driveway that's within the 75-foot setback, as well as the flagstone walkway that goes up to the stairs. All of that is going away, and that's where we make up a large portion of this impervious coverage. The truth of the matter is, there's just not even enough space to really even park a car there. I don't know if you've really been down to that end of Cleves Ave, but really when the homeowners assessed it, it was lot coverage that wasn't really doing any good anyway. So that was an easy removal, easy decision for them to go ahead and remove that. They essentially hadn't even used it as it was, so.
I have no other questions.
Larry?
Yeah, I studied this last night a little while, so I did have a couple of comments. What I noticed was that the elevations are based on the NGVD 1929. Well, that has been superseded by NAVD 88. And NGVD 29 is like 3.5 feet lower than NVD 88, NAVD 88. So, you know, if you could just revise that note. I know in terms of elevation above ground level, it's not going to make that much difference, but all of the FEMA flood maps are related to NAVD 88. So that's one thing I noticed.
Okay.
And then I was trying to, so I noticed, I was comparing the two layouts, and last time you had the proposed conveyance, Sandbox LLC to Amon, and then this time you've actually got it shown in. So has that conveyance occurred?
So we are not making that land swap.
Not making a land swap.
We are not making that. That was, the land swap was only a necessity for the first site plan. To adhere to property line setbacks. But with leaving the house where it is, it would just be a moot point. It wouldn't gain either party.
Understood.
Yep.
And then, so your color code, I couldn't quite understand all of it. So on the original plan, you have a square floor plan, right? And then on this one, you have the square plus a modified deck. I mean, could you discuss that? The existing house, the proposed layout, and then the proposed deck? Yeah, but this one here, see, it's different. It's different. Could you describe the updated?
Sure. So the only colors that you're seeing on this site plan are related to the current property. So there's no.
Okay, so hang on. So the sort of tan is the current house.
Current house, yes, sir.
And then you've got the yellow crosshatch.
Right. So those are like outdoor deck structures. You've got your regular deck, the outdoor shower there in yellow, which is also like a pressure treated structure.
Existing.
Okay.
Existing, yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, so
As
then-
well as the steps off of the corner there.
Those are all gone.
And so.
They will be gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so then you've got the square box, and then you've got a smaller proposed deck.
Yes, sir.
Is that, okay, that's good.
Yep. So
So-
I apologize if I cut you off there. The deck was originally designed to come the full length of that side of the house.
Right,
We set it back
okay.
as to not take up any more impervious surface coverage because that would have been outside of what's already existing. So you can see kind of where the proposed deck is now. It's essentially where the current house is.
Okay.
So just trying to limit our ask there.
Total lot coverage is the same, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then, I noticed you're going to add a heat pump, is that correct?
No, that's existing.
That exists,
Mhm.
okay. So you just have to elevate that along with the house?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so it looks to me like the whole lot is in AE 9 or 10 feet, right? So you're going to elevate the first floor 2 feet above the base flood elevation, right? So your first floor is what's the elevation of the first floor? Do you show that? I didn't see that, but anyway, just wanted to I looked at the maps. It seems to me that the whole lot is, the closer the the north portion, it seems to be AE 10, and then the southern portion where most of the house is AE 9. So that's going to fix your elevation of your first floor 2 feet above that. So if you could just double check you have proper elevation of the first floor
Sure.
above the flood, the base flood elevation.
Understood.
And are you sure none of this is in resource protection? I thought the whole thing was in the FEMA 100-year floodplain.
So, if you're referencing, or if you're referencing NERPA through DEP, we had that, we actually sent this updated plan that you're looking at right now
Uh-huh.
to the DEP last week.
Okay.
And within 24 hours, they approved it as an addendum to our previous PBR that they had already approved.
Okay.
And that was sent over to Galen and posted to the digital file. They sent that, I think, on Friday, and I sent it right over to Galen. So DEP has been kind enough just to approve it as just an adjustment, a revision to the previous permit that we had already submitted, which is why we didn't have to go through a lengthy kind of review there.
Okay.
We were actually more compliant in their eyes than we had been previously.
Okay,
So,
great.
Yep.
And I did have one other question. So I noticed you have a lot of CIRS red dots, and I couldn't what is a CIRS? I figure it's a cast iron reference stake or something. Is that what
It is. If you go out on the property, there are cast iron stakes that have been
All right.
flagged in orange. I think
Yeah.
they were done during that previous property swap in 2018.
Okay. All right, well, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Larry, just to clarify, I think that the code office even flagged that this might all be resource protected, but I don't think that would affect
It's not going to
what they
affect the
can
layout.
do.
I don't think so.
So,
No.
so I think it is resource protected because of the reason you said, it's in that floodplain.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
still, that's 75-foot setback,
Yeah.
all the more reason to not infringe on it, but
right.
yeah, I think they're still okay.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Okay. Michael?
I'm good.
I had one thing. I got the updated plan.
Mm-hmm.
I echoed Nina's remarks. I think it's a cleaner thing
It is, yeah.
that you've done.
Yeah.
and,
Thanks.
But did you provide any text, any update to the original application package? Like the executive summary is wrong now, right? Because it talks about the land swap, and the application page, the form that's in that application is
That's, you know what,
the
that's,
old one.
sure, that's a good point. So I did not go back to that summary and kind of update some of the language in it.
Just like you may have heard me say to the last
Sure.
applicant, you know, people are gonna look at this a year from now, 2 years from now.
Understood.
They're not gonna have you or me to talk to.
Sure.
I'd
Sure.
forget anyway, so,
So that would be a pretty simple,
yeah.
Yeah,
I
just-
ask you to go
Sure.
bring that package, make the edits to that. and-
Understood.
And provide it back to the code office in a week.
sure,
That'd give us
That'd be very helpful, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
it'll give us a complete package.
sure,
It'll help me
Yep.
write the finding of facts as well.
sure.
And
Yep,
if you're gonna do that, I mean, you may
Yeah.
wanna check resource protection.
Yeah, yeah,
It's gonna be
check that
redundant,
block.
but
understood.
That's not
Sure.
checked now.
just
Sure.
check the box.
Yep.
So it looks
Yep.
great, it looks good to me.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
I like this.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to move that we declare this package complete.
Oh, yeah.
Given that the applicant promises and has promised to deliver an update, an edited version of the original application consistent with this new plan.
Sure.
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Mike?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
I'm good with it. Nina?
Aye.
Application's complete then. Phil, hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks
Yes,
for a
sir.
public hearing and.
Sure. Thank you, I
all will go
appreciate
well.
the,
Nice
the
job, thank you.
feedback and suggestions. I'm glad we could,
I was worried about what you're gonna say when you started talking about you played back the video. I was-
Yeah, that's right.
no, that's the old athlete in me going back, and we watch the film and we find a way to get better, and we, we do it, so.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. We just declared it complete. I'd like to just ask one more question that
Sure.
I should have asked before we did that. You've increased the volume, and I know you went over this with Galen. Galen raised the point at the last meeting that the restriction on volume increase is to no more than 30% in the areas that are inside of that 70-foot setback, but also inside of the 15 and 20-foot setbacks. The portions of the house that are non-compliant right now. And you haven't provided that data, but can you affirm that the volume in those proscribed areas of the house are not increasing more than 30%?
I can say that confidently, yeah, particularly with the design of the building, the way the building is designed and structured, yes,
So if you would, in your updated edits,
I can.
confirm that,
absolutely,
that
yep.
would, that would,
Yep.
Galen, does that sound right?
Yeah, because right now it just says the building volume within the 75-foot setback.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's
right.
got the
And
other
I
two.
remembered your remarks
Yeah.
last time, was a good catch.
So we want you're referencing, and I want to make sure I've answered your question appropriately. You're referencing the building volume that's currently non-conforming.
I'm talking about the proposed building
Sure.
where it will be
Mm-hmm.
in violation of the side and front setbacks, no more than they are today,
Sure.
but that those areas you're not
Yep.
increasing more than 30%
Sure. Yep.
in volume. And I know you're not increasing the more in square footage, so
Sure.
that's already clean. But
Sure.
it doesn't jump out from the text that's
Sure.
in there. If you could make the new words affirm that.
I can. Yep.
Okay,
And
great.
I can add that into that executive summary that you had mentioned earlier. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. It's gonna be good.
Excellent.
All right, the third item for this evening is number 240801. References an application for 24 Field Point Road. And I see we have our esteemed,
Yes, please. Yeah, if you could pull that up, that'd be great, Dave. Thank you.
we have our emeritus representative here from Walsh Engineering. Welcome back, Werner.
Yep,
Always-
thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Yep. So, good evening, Board. Just for the record, my name's Werner Gilliam. I'm here from Walsh Engineering, here on behalf of Linda O'Neill, who's the owner of 24 Field Point Road. Next slide, please. So just a reminder as to kind of why we're here. We know that Field Point, so Field Point 24 and 14 Field Point, and this application is specific for 24. They'd experienced shoreline erosion, and that was certainly exaggerated, by the recent destruction of that previous wooden bulkhead. In this picture here, you can actually, you can see what it looked like previously, and then, this photograph that you're looking at here was after those most recent storms. You can see the remnants are kind of tossed up into the lawn area there. And so, as you all know, and as we had been previously before this board, Walsh Engineering had been engaged to design shoreline stabilization for both 24 and 14 Field Point. And so this just gives you a bit of a sense of what we're looking at here specific to 24. Next slide, please. So our previous approval that had been approved by the board involved a stone revetment that came along the beach side of the property and then wrapped around over the existing ledge, as you can see on this plan. And so this plan sheet here was from that previous approval. And so what has, and so as part of that design, it's our, generally speaking, what we found is that riprap revetments tend to, they tend to fare better, in terms of shoreline stabilization, just from, the idea that, a revetment stone, an angled stone revetment really breaks up that wave action, better than vertical walls do. And so that's hence the reason for the original design. But what happened to us in process, so the Maine DEP in conjunction with Maine Geological had done updates to their sand dune maps. And so what had occurred was that small portion along the beach area there of the property had been redesignated as a frontal dune. And so even though our application and our plans had been put into place prior to these maps having been officially adopted, the practice had been at Maine DEP is that they were using these, I'll call them draft dune maps for their permitting and regulatory reviews. So, and at the time, these maps had actually not been adopted by the legislature. They were still going through that, still going through that process. Here, I'll point it out to you. So essentially right where those two lines are, here, right
Okay.
here, and right here.
So that's a sand dune area.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, we had some back and forth, with DEP, but, ultimately what became obvious was that, that trying to pursue, leaving the revetment in there as part of the design, would ultimately, I believe would have resulted in them not approving that particular portion of the plan. And so what we did, next slide, please. So we chose to not really press that issue with DEP staff, and instead what we opted to do was to go with the replacement of the failed timber bulkhead. And that replacement, as you can see from the submitted plan, what that consists of is that's a granite-faced Sierra-scape wall system that's going in place. And this revised design has received DEP NERPA approval, which has been provided to you all as part of the application package. And the reason why DEP is able to approve that is, we had provided sufficient evidence showing that there had been an existing timber bulkhead in place. Ultimately, that actually could have been approved under a permit by rule, but since we had an in-process NERPA for it, we retained that application process with them. And so what you see here is that the riprap revetment that was proposed that is outside of the dune, that portion remains because it's outside of the dune. I mean, and those boulders there remain, and that design has remained unchanged from the board's previous approval.
So basically, the blue line is where you're gonna put the wood back.
The granite, yes,
Granite.
we're replacing the timber wall with a granite wall. Yep.
And then, the red or?
The brown, the reddish brown
brown.
that you see there. So when we look back and, and we saw in a number of aerial photographs, the timber wall had actually extended, quite a ways around, but slowly over the course of time, it had deteriorated until this past storm, where just the remaining portion, that was down on the beach section was left. And then after those January, February storms, that last bit, gave way and was completely destroyed.
Okay, so that was in a previous existing.
That's right. Yes,
Okay.
and it qualified as a
Understand.
Previously existing documented seawall that we obtained permission to replace. And so typically with DEP's practice, they allow for they'll allow for height increases as well, as long as you step it back. And so essentially, the new wall is approximately 2 feet back from the location of the wooden wall, and so that allows us a height increase.
Just for my own education here. So if you were going in clean with no history on this, neither the stone nor the timber revetment would be allowed in between the upland and the dune.
Well,
Is that the way I read this, or is it not that clear?
So if you're outside of the dune system, then at that point in time, there's possibility and opportunity to put in a new wall. But it's
Way back, yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
But it's pretty, it's very clear, within the current regs, that construction of a new wall, or unless you're doing some other type of replacement of some other type of structure, is not something that's permitted. And so a lot of property owners experience that, in particular in the less developed dune systems, where they came to us looking for revetments or for walls, and that is not an option for them.
There's no engineering solution that is on the allowed list at this point.
Well, I mean, there's, so what we have done, and this is, a little bit of a tangent, but, we have done cobble cores. DEP does allow for if beaches have, if there's existing evidence that there's cobble that's there on a cobble beach, you can now do a cobble core restoration, and that's where you essentially have wrapped stone of that same size. You can wrap it in a geotextile and then essentially bury it and revegetate, the dune. So that is, a more recent design allowance that has shown up in NERPA.
Appreciate that.
Yep. So next slide, please. Then here, this is just a cross section, that gives you, that, the idea of where the wall is going. As you can see, we're coming in, within 2 feet of, approximately behind the previous wall. We're outside, and we're now outside of the mapped, the mapped dune system there. Our wall elevation, we have that listed, as approximately elevation 14. But what we do know is that elevation is going to vary slightly, somewhat, just, because we're dealing with ledge conditions out there. This isn't it's not a poured concrete system where you can, get those elevations exact. So where we're going with, fixed granite, that elevation, is likely going to vary slightly. But given the fact that we've moved the wall back further and we're outside of that dune system, that those irregularities don't pose a regulatory problem.
So the dune is out to the right there, right?
That's correct, yes.
And when you say granite block, you're gonna get like 7 feet tall by 3 by 3 granite blocks? And
Yeah, so I'll give you an image of what that's going to look like. So next.
Even though it's an elevation VE 25.
That's
and
correct.
the top of your wall is at 14, so you're still gonna get 10 feet of water coming over the wall. Nobody cares about that?
Well, I wouldn't say that nobody cares about that, but what I would tell you is that this is this particular structure, really, this is an erosion control. We're dealing with an erosion issue. We're dealing with a shoreline stabilization issue.
Okay.
So this is not a flood control structure.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Gotcha.
Yeah, if we were dealing with an attempt to modify or change the base flood elevation on a location, you wouldn't necessarily be seeing this.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
To have that type of an effect.
Warner, I thought that this wall was going to lean back towards the house. It looks like it's perpendicular there.
Well, it's a vertical wall. The granite does step back. As you can see from the cross section here, there's a larger base. There's a larger base stone, but it is for the granite, it is a vertical. It's a vertical placement. And then what you're seeing here, and I'll show you some pictures of an example of a wall system that was actually constructed down at Parsons Beach in Kennebunk. But what you have going on here, so all of the granite block is going to be pinned, is going to be pinned and epoxied. And then you're also, looking at some stainless steel hooks that are essentially going to be drilled and epoxied, into the back of the rock. And what that then hooks into is it hooks into a geotextile fabric. And that geotech fabric, really what it is going to wrap around essentially a stone core that's on the back side of it. And really what this does, what the function of this is this is, what's often referred to as a dead man system, right? So this system then is then anchored into the existing ledge. And then really what this does is this prevents any toppling or shifting of the wall out towards the water.
So you're basically looking at segmented gravity retaining wall. That's what that is.
Yes. Next slide, please, Dave. Yeah. So here's gives you a better kind of visual of what we're looking at. So you have essentially a vertical cage on the back side of the granite, and that is really just a form that's in place that holds the stone. That geotextile then gets wrapped over the stone, and then it gets tied back to itself. And then the fabric that's on the backside there. Now this is a different application. This was this is down at Parsons Beach. But imagine that that fabric that's laying flat on the ground there. That all then gets pinned to the ledge. Next slide, please. So here you get a little bit of a closer shot and view of those stainless steel hooks. I think they're about 3/4 of an inch. That rod there's about 3/4 that hooks in. That hooks into that geotech fabric there. And again, it wraps itself around, and that what you're looking at on the backside there is essentially just a large gravel core that's on the backside. And then
So are you saying that what's going to happen is when water comes over the wall, basically, and it pushes back and everything gets wet, what you've got is a core there, a stone core, and it keeps it from pushing the wall out towards the ocean?
That's right. Yeah, I mean,
Big
certainly that's you've got a lot of, there's annular space back there for drainage to occur. But that, that geotech fabric as well, because it's anchored to the ledge, that acts as a deadman to keep the wall from pushing out. If we go to the last slide. And then this just gives you an idea of kind of what the finished product looks like. Again, relative to the overall height, but this is generally what you're gonna what you'll wind up seeing.
So in that photo, each of those is a granite block, is that the idea?
That's correct. Yes.
What's the approximate dimensions on those?
Those are about a foot.
1 foot by,
Yep. You've got about 4. Yep. Like a 12 by 12 by 4.
okay, wow, that's a bunch of blocks.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and so they wind up getting drilled and pinned from the bottom, so they're pinned, they're pinned to each other, and then they're also drilled on the backside as well, and that's where where those stainless steel hooks get epoxied in.
yeah. Yeah.
And so again, we're back here before the board, to essentially request a revision to the previously approved plan, because we had to do this modification. And so really what we're looking to do here is to bring the local approval in, back into alignment with the NERPA approval, which you all have.
And this granite wall is on the beach area is the only change.
That's correct, yes. Yeah, it's the only modification. I mean, we updated the vegetation. We have some, we have a re-veg plan, as well that's included as part of that. That has some more detail, but yes, that's the only change to the plan.
So the drainage from behind the wall would just go around to the riprap areas?
That's
the
correct,
idea?
yes. Yep.
So you don't need any weep holes?
Don't
in
need
the
any
wall,
weep holes here.
And
Yep.
there's enough drainage, it's not gonna act like a dam, it's gonna act like a retaining wall?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
well, okay.
So thank you. So I'll entertain any other questions that the board may
Nina,
have.
start with you.
I don't have any other questions, except I'm glad to see you're changing to native vegetation. I think your green in one of those diagrams is mostly lawn and a few layers of beach plum and Virginia rose there.
That's correct, yes. We're doing a re-veg. I think we're, approximately about 10 feet of width, of native plants that'll be installed on the backside. Essentially all within the area that winds up being disturbed.
Right, that sounds good to me. No, I think I understand it. I don't have any other questions.
Larry?
Nope, looks good to me.
Michael?
No, I appreciate the visuals because I was having trouble from the plan side putting it all together, and that brought it all home. Thank you very much for that.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's always easier whenever you've got, some good examples of, and especially where we have a project that has just recently been done that is, it's the exact same system, that we're bringing here.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I'm good with this as well. I do, again, we're back to this waiver question. The code office has recommended that the applicant request waivers for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items in the land use ordinance that would come with a standard site plan application. The applicant has addressed all 5 of those by pointing out that they are, in their opinion, not applicable. My own opinion is to agree with that. Nina, do you think the board should go through those today as part of the initial review?
Yeah, I don't think they're really important waivers. The only question I had was on loading and unloading and parking, but I think there are only a few areas you could even do that and bring in materials, so I think it's okay. I would suggest a motion to cover all 5 waivers and approve the waivers.
Would you
In
make,
fact,
would you
I'll
make?
make a
would you
motion
make-
to approve all 5 waivers.
And what are those? The ones that are listed in the code enforcement office's memo?
Right. There's parking and loading and unloading improvements like sidewalks and so forth, lighting, signs, and floor area, none of which are going to be applicable here.
I would second that motion. So will the board agree to waive inputs from the applicant on those 5 items?
Agree.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
Nina, yes?
Agree.
All agreed.
Yeah.
So with that, I would move that this application be deemed complete.
Just one question.
Excuse me?
Warner, were you able to provide a statement for the engineer about the chapter 219, that section, just to make sure it's not going to impact the floodplain?
Yes, I think I did. I replied to your email that,
Yeah.
we conferred, within the office about that and all agreed that, that this was not going to provide any adverse impact to the floodplain.
Yep. That's it.
Again, it's not a flood control structure,
It's just happening in that area.
Yeah, just happens to be within that area. It's primarily it's a stabilization structure.
Thank you.
Okay.
So is a motion on the floor?
So I'll second that.
All in favor of determining that this application is complete?
Yes.
Approve.
Mike, Larry, Ed says yes. Nina?
Yes.
So we're good. 2 weeks.
Very good.
See you again. Thank you, Werner, as
All right.
always.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Werner.
I have a question for Galen. If we're going to be looking at the floodplain management ordinance and so forth, and obviously engineering is required there, that's something we can't waive. And that's going to be a requirement from now on for things like shoreland stabilization?
So if you look in your site plan review standards under section 10.7, it says all site plan applications shall conform with town-wide standards of Article 6, and that's where your 219 standards are referencing.
Yep.
So it depends on what they're intending to do in the floodplain. They might need an engineer's statement.
I think what I hear, Nina, I don't mean to speak for you, but I don't think the board is in a position to make that determination. It's fine that says
No,
that.
I don't think we can waive anything like that. I think
Correct.
that can't be waived.
So if that, is required, I think we need town engineering help with that.
Well, in this case, Walsh is an engineering firm.
Absolutely.
And
No,
I don't,
that's
I
right.
don't have a great problem with that when they make a statement that, this will work. But when we have something like the condo association sitting there, I think it really kicks in.
I think we're saying that it's gonna need a professional engineer to do anything in that area.
I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, you
And
need.
staff suggested that in our memo to the 135 Ocean Ave, that they should really seek an engineer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They
Well,
need
that-
it.
Yep.
I mean, that is what it's gonna take
Yep.
to provide a convincing argument that it will pass that ordinance.
Yeah.
that they're saying so isn't gonna be sufficient. That's the interpretation. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Werner.
Thank you. Okay, good.
You need a case manager for that?
Yes, Larry has volunteered graciously to, as he did before, to be the case manager for this reapplication.
Yeah, I did 1424, so I'll just do this one. It'll be easy.
Mr. Ripraff.
That's right.
All right, we do have on the agenda the potential to do some old business to further advance our discussion of the planning board rules and procedures going forward. Do we want to do that without George? Well, I think we get to say. I'm just asking your opinion. Nina, do you have a thought?
Well, we have a quorum.
Oh, I understand. It's not,
I don't have a problem going forward, but if you,
well, as long
you
as
know,
yeah,
a
maybe-
small board, and if you feel, everybody feels that everyone should be present and contributing to that, we could put it off till the next meeting.
Right, or potentially we could still advance this and George or whoever isn't here on a given night can look at the tape
Yeah.
and
Or look at the
It-
changes
you know,
captured.
let's, I don't think the change is being retained in the copy. I think it's being accepted.
Okay.
But you
thought
can
it
still
was
go back and look, but if we make an agreement that we're all gonna go back at the end of making these changes and make another pass, have another
Oh,
opportunity to
absolutely.
review it before we approve it, I think that would cover us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do that, yeah.
Okay. Nina, how's that sound?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so Nadia, we missed you at the last meeting. Galen did a formidable job of putting his hands on the keyboard, but if you would bring that up, we'd appreciate it.
They've accidentally deleted it.
Oh, my God.
No, I would have cried. Okay, I think you're. Can you read that, Nina?
Where we be,
Yeah, where did,
Where's the end of?
Go. Gone up. I think we stopped at the application procedure, if memory serves me.
Yeah, I think we were starting on the application procedure. I'd like to make a statement about this before we go forward. I made some comments in there and they may seem, you know, very pointed, but I just finished some bylaws, working on bylaws with one of my boards, Maine Chestnut Board. And we've been working on those for quite a while legally. And one of the things about bylaws and rules and procedures and things that govern how a body works, they need to have a lot of flexibility, and you need to basically streamline them to things that are absolutely essential. Because if you start putting in a lot of details and requirements, and I'll give you an example, one of our requirements in the bylaws was to have an executive committee and a finance committee, and then they listed some more committees in there. We took the extra committees out because when you have a document like that, if you don't have those committees, if you decide to eliminate those committees, basically, you have to go back and you have to amend your bylaws because you can be taken to a court and challenged on that. even on a different subject, saying that you don't follow your rules and procedures. So the idea is to keep them flexible and only put in what's really essential. Does that make sense to people? It's a legal document.
So we need to not say things that we are not going to do. We need to say only things that we believe are essential, and we need to say them in a way that we are going to follow.
Exactly.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So you have to be careful about that.
We're writing a spec, we're writing a procedure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that said, I also went back and I finally joined the MMA. It was the only way I could get to the updated MMA rules and stuff. Galen read some of them to me. And, sorry. Keep going back to that. Oh. And one of the things they were pointing out, see if I can find it, is common violations. Is that chance meetings between board members and/or with private citizens at the grocery store or private party at which they discuss an application, especially where a majority of the board is involved in the discussion, but it doesn't have to be a majority, is a common violation. And, you know, we went back and forth about whether two people could talk at a cocktail party or in the grocery store. And I really warn board members to be very careful about that. I wouldn't do it, frankly. I just wouldn't do it. You don't have to make it a requirement, but I think people need to understand you don't discuss applications outside of meetings because it's a violation of the Freedom of Information Act. Goes right back to the statute.
So I think in the spirit of what you just said, we don't want to say that in the procedure itself. We certainly don't want to try to enumerate all of the different places, like the grocery store and cocktail parties, et cetera, that we're warning people about in our procedures.
Well, I'm just saying, outside of public meetings, you want to be very careful.
Right. I think that goes, we all agree we need to be careful, but we all should agree that two individuals can meet outside of this meeting who are on this meeting and talk about a case, even one that's active.
And I guess in talk is one thing, exchange emails is the other, because I see us doing that back and forth when we're.
One-on-one.
Well, yeah, just one-on-one email back and forth.
Absolutely
over,
agree.
finding a fact or something.
Just remember, those are retrievable.
Yeah.
You know, if this was ever contested in lot, that those emails are,
I've spent enough time with the
will be
Department of
requested,
Justice
yeah,
to
so,
know that.
but that's allowed, and you need
Yeah,
to do
but
it carefully. You can't do it in an open grocery store.
Right.
Right.
No, but we have to have the ability to have an exchange between two board members over something. And as long as we retain that, I'm okay. I don't usually talk.
It's okay to talk to email about procedure or like corrections on the FOF,
Yeah.
like we've been doing. But if you were to start discussing the application, whether it should be approved or disapproved, I would not do that.
No, the biggest thing is finding a fact or getting some clarification about something, you know, am I looking at this right or something, you know, but being able to do that, not is it complete or should we approve it or anything like that, no. It's just sometimes need to.
Nina, have you proposed language now? Are you setting us up for something we're gonna go look at?
No.
Okay.
No, we put language in there. I just wanted to warn you about that because I've been reading on some case law on that. You just want to, the idea is to avoid the appearance of impropriety.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't look like you're colluding outside of a public meeting. Okay?
I'd like to look at the next proposed change in the
Okay.
document. I think we're proceeding through it top to bottom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Galen or Nadia, can you remind us where we are?
Yeah, so if we go to the application procedure section, it's that subsection A, you see the time of submission. I made a comment here in this section about how applications, requests, and related material must be filed with the town at least 14 business days in advance unless the board waives the requirement in respect to a specific item. I just think this may appear to conflict with your subdivision application submission requirements. So I don't know if this is something you need to really specify, since your site plan review process clearly states when submissions have to be submitted, and also your subdivision provisions also have dates. I don't know if this
Yeah,
is.
so why don't we
redundant.
take the specific reference to time out of this and say that it need to be in accordance with the
Requirements.
the two, with the, that land use ordinance section and the subdivision regs.
Yep. It was just a comment, so we can look at it.
It's a good catch.
Yeah,
The subdivision regs come from the main statutes. The
yes,
sub,
yep,
so they will dominate anything you try to put in there. You cannot change that to make them any shorter.
Oh, you're saying the 30 days comes from the main statutes?
yes,
Yes,
Interesting,
yes.
okay. So, do you disagree about, how do you think we should change this section then, Nina?
well, you already have the requirement in your subdivision regs. You don't need to have it in here.
Right, but for site applications, we need it somewhere, and I think we have that in the land use ordinance. Isn't the timing in there already? Yeah, so I was suggesting that we take it out of here and perhaps allude to reference those other two documents.
Yes. That would be the best way to do it.
Okay,
Must be filed with the town in accordance with the land use ordinance and the subdivision regulation in advance unless the board waives the requirement. I'm not sure, can we waive this requirement if it's in the main statutes?
I don't believe so, no.
Oh, yeah, well, I would take that
we'll
out.
just take that last part out. Regulations. From unless until the end, delete that, please.
Yeah.
Does that read okay now, guys?
Yeah,
So that's for the initial submission, right?
And this is just a comment from Mike about the, we don't really have, I think, an official deadline for when materials have
Yeah,
to
we
be in from the public for when we do public hearings. So I don't know if you guys want to cover that in here or just kind of,
I'd like to stay silent on that.
Yeah.
I think that we allow inputs from the public. I think we treat them as information. We have a public meeting, a public hearing, and where the public can speak or Zoom in or call in, and they can refer to materials that have been provided in advance, 7 days. No, not even 7 days. They can allude to those information, but they represent themselves at that time,
I thought we discussed
supported by
this
their
last time.
documentation.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
what do we
I think
decide?
it's important to leave that open
Yeah,
and
just leave it.
allow the public to submit anything at any time.
Yep.
If, for example, during a public hearing, they refer to an item that was submitted in writing, and we haven't gotten to it, you can always continue the public hearing if you think, if they describe it as an item that might have a significant effect on the application.
That was a comment based on Wiles District where we were getting things 15
Right.
minutes before.
When you
The
just said
board
that,
meeting.
Mike, I thought you were gonna tell me I just disagreed with what I said last time. I was worried, I was worried for it. Not that that would ever happen.
I disagree with myself all the time.
So we're good with
That-
Yeah, we're good with
And Mike,
that.
that all often it happens, you know, people say, oh, I didn't hear about it, so it's a last minute submission, and I just got the email in and so forth. And we allow that leeway for public comment.
No,
Yeah, and
Mike,
I like
good.
your point, Nina, that, and we have a way of dealing with that too. If we think it's significant, we could continue, we could
Continue
allow
the
more
public.
time at that point. It would have to be, you know,
Yes,
evaluated at the time.
yes.
Okay, next, C.
There was a strikeout recommended, I don't know who it was recommended by, for C. Okay, it was me. Actually, I think this is what we discussed at the last meeting, wasn't it?
We did, I think
we
this is,
did,
this is
yeah.
what we agreed at the last meeting, those changes, they just didn't get accepted.
Yeah, we have to have an applicant request an extension of time, and then we can grant it.
So this looks good.
Mhm.
D, is this similar with
Oh.
D? Did we look at D last time? I think we did.
Are we accepting changes or are we waiting for George for voting? I wasn't sure where we ended up on the,
I think we can make changes and then George will look at them. If you go up to,
I think we should accept them by quorum here. And we're all gonna get a final pass at this to see that it reads right.
right.
so you don't accept them.
Just leave it.
Leave it because for the clerk, when I do E-codes, when we update this, I need to show E-codes what's stricken out and what's, so it needs to be marked up. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and I think we have a way of, you know,
Uh,
Yeah.
reading this without, you know, with appearing as if it's, if they've been corrected.
Go up to B again. I think the mailing delivery, we need to clarify this to say we're just accepting them at the town hall.
Yeah, that's simpler,
Yep,
really.
That is an outstanding change.
okay. So we'll update that section
Appreciate.
if you,
Yeah. Do we do
yeah, we don't need to do it right now, but I think,
update it?
yeah, we can update it because I don't want to take everyone's
Okay.
time.
Are you saying you're gonna take out mail?
Yes.
I wouldn't do that. I would leave them the option.
Maybe you'll go back.
It's the applicant's risk, but there are applicants, you know, working for people who are several towns away, and they may opt to mail something in rather than take time out of their schedule to get somebody to deliver something.
Well, they
You
can,
can mail it to
maybe
town
to
hall.
clarify it, that they can mail it or drop it off at the town hall. Instead of end of each member.
Because it says each member has to have it mailed to them.
Right.
And we've agreed that's
not
not
doing that
happening
anymore.
anymore.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so
No,
maybe-
I don't
we
care how
have-
they get it to town hall.
So maybe just, we put promptly after filing with the town, well, no, I guess we can strike that out. The applicant shall mail or deliver, complete copies of the application supporting material to the town hall. Is that,
Are these rules and procedures for the planning board?
Yes,
yes.
So I don't think how what the applicant does getting it to the town needs to be in here.
It's rules also for, you know, how you conduct your meetings as
Yeah.
well. So like there is a section in here that deals with what's expected of applicants and even the public in presenting information to the board. And you don't have any other sections in your land use or your subdivision that explain about mailing applications versus, so you need some kind of
I think that's
guidance.
a level of detail that we want to stay away from, per Nina's advice earlier. I think I'd be happy to put something in here that says the applicant will deliver sufficient copies to town hall. I don't think we need to say whether it's by carrier pigeon or by US mail or however it gets there. And the town office will provide, will distribute those to the planning board members. So some people,
No, I think I'd leave them the option to mail directly to the planning board members.
I would
wouldn't.
prefer not to do that.
I think that's confusing, Nina, to the general public if they're reading it.
Hmm.
I mean, they can if they want, you mail it to the entire town if you want, but I mean, I think from a general applicant's perspective, they want to know what they need to do, which is they can just leave it at town hall with the planning office, right?
Yeah.
Or mail it to town hall.
Or mail it to,
Yeah,
it
if
just has
they're
to
out
get
in
to town.
California.
Right.
Get her there.
I don't want to be getting it two different ways, I'll tell you that.
No, I'd just go pick it up most of the time. Oh, they could mail it to the town hall, right?
Yeah, they can mail it. I mean, if they're in California and they need to mail it because they don't want to drop it off, hand deliver it.
That's fine.
That'd be easy.
I mean, we're really not saying that here, that they have to hand deliver it.
No,
Mail or deliver, that's,
Mailing or delivery to members.
yeah.
that's what I don't want.
Mail or delivery of,
I think
Planning
say
board
to the town office, and put another sentence in there that says, the town will distribute the information to board members 14 days in advance.
Well, that section says mailing or delivery to members. And I think, now we're delivering to the town hall.
That's right.
I think we need to clarify that, materials have to go to members too, even though it's in the rules and regs.
Right. Well, that's why I
This-
was suggesting two sentences, Nina. One that says, get it to town hall, and then another sentence that says, the town will distribute it to the members, and say in what time frame.
That would be okay, as long as the paragraph is because the first paragraph is filing with the town. The second paragraph deals with getting the application materials to the members. So I don't want to make it look like they're delivering more to the town hall without understanding it goes to the members.
Right, right. So put the two sentences in the two different paragraphs. As you say, the first, you can get it to the town hall, that'll go in paragraph A.
That goes to A.
We just want to be sure that they're giving complete packs for each of the board members, not expecting the code office to make copies.
Okay, well, what happens then if for their submission to the town, they mail the package to the town?
They'd
And the
have to
town
mail
opens
a-
it
That's
up
on them.
and distributes the information to our boxes.
Well, they may not. Are you assuming they'll put everything for members in there too?
I'm not assuming it, I'm saying it's required.
Okay, well,
So they need
They
to,
provide, just as they do now, the only thing we're doing is, they don't have to buy the postage. They have to buy the postage just to get it to the town hall, or they can get it there by hand.
okay. So you're saying they can mail or by hand deliver to the town hall their application? And delivery of application to members can come with that, or it can come separately to the town? You're leaving out the mailing there? Can they
I'm
mail
saying they need
to the
pro-
town for the members?
They need to deliver.
They need to deliver it to the town.
How they
I don't
do it
care
is
if
up to
they
them.
use a messenger service, if they FedEx it. I don't think we want to get into that level of detail.
yeah, I just want to be sure that they know it's a full package for each person and not expecting I sent it to,
Oh, we would tell them.
yeah.
We tell them you need this many copies.
Yeah, okay, as long as that's clear, because that's.
You want
that
to
gets to be
propose,
a
I mean.
nightmare.
Why don't we
real
say
time.
then the application materials for members must be filed with the town as well for delivery to members?
We're not delivering to members. You have your mailboxes to pick them up.
Well, in fact, why don't you just insert the word each?
I have a suggestion,
And a
guys.
copy. How about if you say with
Mailing
a
or
copy?
delivery of application materials for each member. right? That way it's obvious
Yep,
it's
I like-
each member, not just all members together with one copy.
Oh, it's a good idea.
For each member.
Yes.
So one of the things we're struggling with here is we're trying to, in a group, propose wording
Yeah.
in real time.
Yeah,
And I think that's great where we can do it. But if it goes on, I think we ought to be open to taking an action, someone
Sort that.
accepting that action and coming back and proposing language.
Yeah.
So keep that as a weapon that we can use here to sort of advance the task. So Larry, would you try to read the sentence you had in mind and just point us to where the
Okay.
cursor should go?
okay, so mailing or delivery of.
Which section?
B, 405-10B. So mailing or delivery of application materials for each member, full stop, promptly after filing with the town, the applicant shall mail, okay, what's he filing with the town? Why is it
That goes,
after?
that's gonna go back to A. Get rid of that.
Okay, so yeah, delete that lead in up to, so then capitalize the word "the." The applicant shall mail or deliver a number of complete copies of the application and supporting documents to the town for subsequent distribution to the board members. Full stop.
Right, and why doesn't that go in the preceding paragraph?
Good.
Well, the first paragraph talks about time. This one's talking about.
So I'm fine with that, leaving it, but Nina had suggested that it needed to go in the previous paragraph before.
Well,
I'm good with what you just said.
okay. So the applicant shall mail or deliver
To the town.
to the town office
Right.
the application and supporting materials for each board member, well, for subsequent distribution by the code enforcement to each board member, something like that. No?
No, something like that. I agree. But, you see what I mean about trying to get the language
Oh, yeah.
precisely correct?
So, and then the last sentence, it talks about time again. Do you want to put the time thing in the paragraph A? Because this is just talking about materials, A is about time.
You want?
We're talking
if you
about
want,
14
give me an
days.
action and I'll go make a proposed change to these two paragraphs to capture this concept
So you're,
of capturing what we are doing today.
okay, so you're gonna,
I would be willing to do that if you don't want to do it in real time.
I think it's
If you
a good
want to
idea.
continue to do it here, I'm okay with that too.
yeah.
The first paragraph is fine.
Okay,
Okay,
You don't need anything in the first paragraph. It's the time of submission to the town.
yeah,
okay.
And the second paragraph deals with delivery of applications for the members.
Well,
then we talk
we're
about.
going to change that
Why are you going to change that?
because it's going to say what the applicant has to deliver to the town.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know, but the second paragraph, the subject of it is delivery of materials to the members, whether you do it through the town or mail or any other way. That's the subject of the second paragraph,
correct.
and you have to state that. And then you say how it's to be delivered for the members.
Yeah, oh, we did.
Nina, do you want to take the action to go propose the language? Or do you want me to
Yeah,
do it?
I'll work on the language if you like.
Okay,
All right.
okay. We'll talk about it next time, is that the idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
now
if you
moving on to C.
So I think we discussed this at the last meeting with, unless the board votes for an extension of time, we thought that was not needed. It's at the applicant's request. They can make extensions.
Yes. And, yeah, that works.
Okay. I think D and E we've dealt with last meeting, so we'll go down to 11. This is manager. Pardon? Okay.
There was a question of whether you want to call it the case manager or just leave it as manager.
I think we, up above, in your rules earlier, you already had case manager and you had it in brackets as manager.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yep,
then we're all,
yep, we should be okay. Uh,
So I question this business about saying that the case manager has the responsibility for communications with the applicant. I don't think that's what we do or want to do.
I believe, wasn't that handled up higher? I'm sorry, I don't know how to operate her laptop.
yeah.
I think we had that up here somewhere about managers.
Yeah, where that parenthetical is, you're saying?
There it is, right here. Subsection 3, designate a manager to act as the case manager, in each application received by the board.
Right, and that's all that needs to say.
Yep. So I guess I'm not seeing that other section. I thought there was, but it's been a while since I've.
Okay.
So the first sentence can be deleted in paragraph 405-11, correct?
The first sentence?
A member shall be designated.
And I would leave it there, it just makes it clear again.
You think, okay. So
I would
repeat it.
capitalize member, since you're capitalizing member
It is,
everywhere
it
else.
is capitalized.
No.
A member, that's.
Sorry,
a
I meant
planning board
manager,
member.
I meant manager, sorry,
Yep.
never mind, member's fine.
Yep.
And I would just add, and shall have the primary responsibility for the administration of the application. And I would just leave the rest of that sentence out. Because they don't.
You shouldn't be communicating.
I like that.
Okay.
Leave the last sentence though, right?
Yes, leave the last sentence. Yeah.
And so remove everything else?
And,
Well,
yes.
Yeah,
or
I
for
don't know if that needs to be in there.
No,
Can-
yeah, get all that out of there.
I do not like your mouse.
The last sentence maybe is anecdotal.
So they want to get rid of this last section. So you wanted to read, the manager shall have the primary responsibility for the administration of the application, then just strike everything else out.
Period.
Okay.
Including the last sentence, the manager will, yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna talk later about
what, yeah,
What
what
happens
gets
after,
produced
right.
and when.
yeah.
Certain board actions don't get documented in a findings of fact, for example.
What? I think that the manager does prepare the findings of fact.
When they are prepared, that is the case manager's responsibility. That's correct. And we'll say that later.
Well, no, it's management of applications. And if you've got the manager in there right now, that's the subject of their.
If we don't approve an application, the case manager does not provide a findings of fact. If it is a,
Yes, they do.
no, they don't. We just had one of those.
Wow, this,
Somebody wrote a letter that said, we disapprove this. There was no findings of fact.
That is a finding of fact.
then
It may not be labeled as a finding of fact, but it's a
And
letter.
the case manager
Basically,
didn't
giving the
write it.
evidence why the application was rejected. I wrote that later.
I know, and you weren't the case manager, I don't think.
Yes, I was.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay,
Yes, I was.
I see. So your
Yeah.
position would be that on
And
disapproved
you don't have to say findings of fact, you can just say findings.
I don't think that clarifies it, but can we wait, can we defer this until we talk about what the board does in which situation? Okay.
Because I know there is something about that later.
Yeah.
Because there, you have the other letter that, for a subdivision after the initial,
And
that's
preliminary, yeah.
preliminary, so you got other things that are being done.
I just want to,
That's a finding too.
I understand, but that's the first time we've ever said that, Nina. It could be that that's a good working definition, but it's a new thought to me.
Yeah,
And it certainly, would bear saying that somewhere.
It's findings of fact or statements of the board summarizing basic facts involved in a particular application.
Nina,
Such
did you
and
just
I'm
agree-
taking this from the
did
MMA.
you just
okay?
agree we could defer this discussion until we get to where we talk about what we produce?
Okay, but I don't, otherwise that paragraph doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay, so this is the meeting procedures section. I don't think there were any changes in this section. Are you seeing any, Nadia?
Can we just read it? Sorry, it's been a while since I went over this. The intent of the board. That's interesting. It's not just the board that intends that. I think it says, I think if we're gonna talk about this, we're gonna say that it's a requirement.
and not only
Or
for
at least
the,
a statement that all meetings will be conducted, not that the board intends to do that.
I think you intend the board to be, but the reality of what might happen might be different than what you intend to happen. I think it's a fair statement. It's your
Well,
goal, it's your
you
vision
could
for what you
say
want.
it is
It's
the
a
goal.
fair statement and it
Intent
comes
goal.
down from the
Reality,
main
we've had-
statutes, basically on the Freedom of Information Act.
It says that the intent is. It
Yes.
talks about intent?
Well, why can't we just delete the first few words and just start with the word at? Or all meetings, including public hearings, shall be governed by fairness, openness, and common sense.
Yeah, I like that.
So you just delete the first part of that sentence.
I would say all board meetings, including public hearings.
Fine?
Okay, yeah. All right. All board meetings?
so that means executive meetings don't have to follow it.
Certainly not
Yes,
common
they
sense.
are board
Gloves are
meetings,
off.
executive meetings are board meetings.
You want to put an exclusion on the
Yeah,
common sense?
I was looking for an out.
All right. I think that's an improvement.
By the way, as far as executive meetings go, the main statutes are very clear that no final decisions can be made in executive meetings. Once you've deliberated, you have to come out into a public meeting and make your final decision. Just for your information. Never had an executive meeting.
Never had an executive meeting.
It's good to know what to do if we have. So I don't know about this second sentence. Rulings of the presiding member shall be final unless a majority votes otherwise. I don't understand this one. Has this ever happened?
Yes,
Yeah?
and I would leave that sentence in there.
Yep.
Could you give an example?
Yeah.
Or,
When somebody is the presiding member,
So the chair says, we accept this.
no,
No,
say
no, what, like what?
we have a public meeting, a contentious public meeting with a lot of people coming in.
Yeah.
And the presiding member says, okay, all these, the rest of these are, you're saying the same thing over and over again, and I rule that we don't have to hear anymore.
Ah,
Then the other voting members may come in and say, well, no, there's some differences here and there's some more information to come. So one
you see
person
this as being
cannot
on
just make a
procedure.
final decision if the other voting members think that that's not a good decision.
And this is on the paragraph on procedure, meeting procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And this is a common provision I've seen in Robert's Rules of Order where, for parliamentary procedure, if the chair does a ruling, like that someone doesn't have someone has a conflict or not a conflict, the members have the ability to override the decision of the chair.
Okay,
It should be something rarely used and.
okay.
Right. You probably won't see it used in your complete tenure on the board, but it can happen.
Yep.
Okay.
So again, I don't
So
think there's.
I propose that section A is acceptable as is.
Yeah.
And these are the 7 things that can be,
To amend the proposed poll.
that can be moved procedurally.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question? All motions require a majority vote of the voting members. There's only 5 members, correct? So that would have to be 3.
Yep.
Then we have, except that a 3/5 vote is required for a motion to go into executive session. Isn't that kind of redundant?
I think it suggests that you have to have 5 people here to go into executive session. You have to have 5 members present. That's what that says. Oh, but then it says it's got a qualification on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is confusing. I see.
But it says in the event that only a quorum of 3 voting members is present, all members must vote unanimously in order to render a decision.
No, but what's the exception for executive meeting? I don't get it now. David pointed out.
If you had 5 members present and they wanted to go into an executive session, they need at least 3/5 vote, which is a majority. If there's only, you'd still need 3.
No, you can't satisfy the 3/5.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right, so you need a majority, right, to go into an executive session.
Even if people aren't there. You need,
I would read that as,
Executive sessions are we trying to get at?
I don't know.
I would read that as saying that all 5 voting members have to be present in order to go into an executive
And I
session.
don't think that's what we want. You know,
Before-
that's not how I read
I
it.
don't know if that's true, but that's,
Yeah, that's, as,
I mean, if
That might come down from statute. I'd have to go back to the executive session stuff,
I don't think
you want to take an action on that?
not without reading it again.
no, an action to read it and figure it
To
out.
read it and look at the statute and say, is it okay or not? Because right now, it looks like, I agreed with Nadia. I said, oh yeah, when you point that out, it looks like all 5 members have to be here.
Yeah, well, you can have 3 or 4, you can have 3 and they all agree, or you can have 5 and 3 of them can
No,
agree. But
and
if you
2
have
don't
4, you're out of
agree.
luck.
That's right. So,
Well, it says to, well, let's see.
I didn't really want to go make you research it in real time, Nina. I don't think that's necessary, but
Yeah,
if we can decide to strike that exception for executive, then that's fine. Or let's take an action to go take it offline. We got about 15 more minutes, I think. of-
I would take it offline because I'm not sure that
You willing to do that homework?
that comes down in the MMA.
Nina, are you willing to take that action?
You mean go look it up?
Go propose
homework
whether a
assignment.
change is needed or not there and defend it. Right now, it's confusing, the language that's there. We don't even understand what it means.
Well, I think what Nadia said is that it has to be all voting members and it has to be 3 out of the whole 5. It can't just be 3 members decide to go into executive session. Executive sessions usually involve things with people. Decisions to fire somebody, decisions to look at impropriety, things like that, besides budgets and other things. So it's possible that their reasoning is that, you know, you don't want just a few people on the board be able to start, you know, poking at somebody. You want the whole board to decide that we need to look at this particular impropriety.
So why don't we?
But
why don't we-
I will go back and look it up.
Okay, thank you. Because if that's what we want, I think we should say it more clearly. All 5 members have to be present, or 5 voting members have to be present to go into executive session. Make it unambiguous, if that's what we want. Again, given that we've never done that, it shouldn't be too important to me, but I'd like the language to be clear.
Clear.
Thanks for taking that.
Okay.
Be the last time you leave me chairing a meeting. So, Nadia, what section?
Yeah, you're taking too much authority there.
What,
1 to 7,
what section was that?
That was
4,
40512A.
and then there's 1 to 7.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, and 1 to 7, I'm fine with.
The only question I had there is there one that you can continue a public hearing?
Postpone till a future date.
Is that the same thing?
Continue an initial review. I mean, you can
Yeah.
enumerate them all, but postpone or continue? Do you want to elaborate that?
I think postpone to a future, that gives you
Enough?
enough
Yeah.
gray area that you can play with it. That it's
Alright.
postponing for future date initial review, postponing for public hearing for a future
Yeah.
date as well. I think you have the
Postpone
flex.
declaring it complete, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's agree that that's our interpretation.
Okay. Then 1 to 7, then we had to B.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure why we wanted to say motions to reconsider are discouraged. I agree with that, but why do you really want to state that?
Is this something out of Robert's Rules of Order? Where did this, when does this apply? I don't know that we've ever had a motion to reconsider.
Well,
No, it's very unusual. You can reconsider an approval of an application, for example,
Well-
and it's rarely done.
Yeah.
Suppose, for example, that earlier this evening, we had an application where we decided that the application was complete. And then one of the elderly board members said, well, wait a minute, there was one more question I haven't asked. And they asked the question and the answer came back, oh, what? And we really didn't want to declare it complete. That would be a motion to reconsider.
And you have provisions in your subdivision and your land use that do allow you to reconsider an application, but it's a short time frame. You don't have much leeway
Oh,
on
right.
reconsidering.
This would be, and you can understand why it would be discouraged. It makes you look
Yeah.
Yeah, but
unprofessional.
I agree that it should be discouraged, but I'm not sure I want to state that in an official document.
Yeah, you can just get rid of the first sentence.
Get rid of the
That's-
first sentence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This may come down from Maine statutes on reconsideration.
that
Okay,
it's to be
so-
discouraged.
They do discourage it.
Sure.
I remember reading, because they don't want people going back and forth constantly saying, oh, well, we don't like this one, let's go back and look at it again. But I think Maine actually puts in language like that. And I remember reading it, but I don't remember where it is. I would leave it in there. Because I think you want to encourage people to basically do it thoroughly the first time. And it would be a rare thing to reconsider.
Right.
But you leave in the possibility of reconsideration. I would leave that sentence in there.
I support Nina. Mike,
I still think it's,
you don't like it?
I don't like it, but I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We have to, So this is, getting into the text that I proposed. That I know Nina was gonna go in and look at it.
I looked at it.
I did this, basically from my experience.
Yeah.
In my career, I've read and written a lot of procedures. It's hard to get a bunch of hundreds of people sometimes to move in the same direction, and so a lot of care and thought goes into making those procedures. This is a little different than that, but I found myself trying to step back from what we were doing and saying, well, wait a minute, what I normally want to do when I set up a procedure or a process is say, what are my inputs? What processing do I do on it? What are the different processes within my procedures that I need to do? And then what do I do in each of those cases as a result? What do I produce? And when you do that, you start saying, okay, I get different types of applications, 2 major, and then sort of some, like the subdivisions, I get 3 different submissions, and I have a slightly different process in each case. I have site plan applications, that's a little different, and then there might be some more, but those are the 2 major ones, and in each of those cases, my results are different. Like in the sketch plan, I don't produce a finding.
Ed, can I interrupt you there?
We already have.
I understand what you, okay, I'm
And I'm not
interrupting
talking
you.
just to you, Nina, here, so just keep that in mind, all right? I'm trying to give the board.
I
not-
know
I'm
what
not-
you're trying to do, and you're putting in the guidelines and trying to clarify what we do. But remember, this rules and regulations like this are legal, okay?
Of course.
They can be challenged. When you're writing guidelines for people along the way, and you're making suggestions and guidelines, most of them are not things like bylaws or rules or regulations that can be challenged in court. They're just guidelines. All right, we do certain things along certain ways, but some of this is redundant, and some of this, it just doesn't make sense.
I understand, in fact, you told me that several meetings ago.
And
Yeah.
I guess I disagree with it, that it did make sense to me. I thought
Oh,
it
it
was
makes
good.
sense in doing things the way we do it, but
I-
codifying it in the rules and procedures is not a good idea. Remember what I said about streamlining things. For example, in the agenda, that's already covered in section 405, 8G. Okay, 1 and 2. And under the law, an agenda is prepared and it is published. It doesn't have to be published 7 days in advance, whether it's convenient or not. And all you have to say is that agenda is prepared, and you say that back in 405.8G 1 and 2. You don't have to say it's entered into the record, because
So,
by
Nina-
law,
Nina,
it's
can I
already
interrupt you,
codified.
Nina?
Mhm.
May I interrupt you?
Uh-huh.
So are you proposing that I stop pontificating about why I did this and we just start marching through it? Is that your point? You're starting on the first paragraph that I've proposed, and you're saying there's some
I'm just-
redundancy in it. Or
I'm just
are you
using
making a
that
general-
as an example. What you're doing is duplicating partly what we have already, and you're adding details to it and requirements. And the minute you add requirements to it, it gets dangerous, because someone can call you on it.
I think what she's saying, Ed, is if you've got 7 days, and let's say for some reason the agenda only comes out on
No,
day
I
5.
understand that, and I'm open to these criticisms, but I'm hearing something that says we don't want to talk about or even entertain having this section. And I think if we go through it, we will not all agree on that. I think that there's some, there's some important, to me, some important points in here that cause me to spend the better part of a day working on it. So I'd like to not reject it before we even read it together.
And I think there is, you know, in the world, I can be sued or taken to court for anything. It's just one of the wonders of living in America.
Right,
But in having a
we worry that on
document,
a case by case,
yeah, having a document laying out what we do.
normally,
Normally, you know, if
typically.
not here or reference, I mean, I find this very helpful. This is the process, instead of trying to decipher it through a document, it's laid out very clearly.
Inputs, processing,
And
outputs.
here it is. You know, so you know, is the benefit of the clarity worth the potential of a
Well,
risk
we'll
of
put
somebody?
some guardrails on that.
Yeah.
You know, typically.
No, I'm sorry, I can't agree with that at all. I really cannot, as an attorney. I'm really warning you that when you start pontificating and putting details into this, like this section, it's something you don't want to do because you need the flexibility to change that. And when you put it in just like bylaws, you can't change it. You cannot change direction. If you want to make some guidelines on the side, outside of these rules and procedures, fine, but don't make them rules and procedures.
So I would like to point out it's 3 minutes to 8, and I would like to propose that we adjourn for this evening.
So before you adjourn, you know, from a staff perspective, you know, I just encourage the board, you know, we are burning the midnight oil and I don't want to take any more time. But just look at what Ed's suggestions are, because I think from a staff perspective, you know, we would appreciate everyone rowing in the same direction. But as Dr. Perlmutter mentioned earlier, maybe we just need to create some flexibility in here that it's not something that if the agenda is not posted 7 days, that,
Absolutely.
you know, that it doesn't nullify, and we have
could-
I think
language
that's
in.
that's a marvelous
So
suggestion.
just, let's look at this with fresh eyes. We did a lot of reviews tonight, but let's just take a look at this and we'll look at it in 2 weeks. That's, just from staff's perspective, we would appreciate rowing all in the same direction.
I appreciate that.
Excellent.
And we'll start on B.
Yes, B.
Well, we don't want to
not-
go, we could start from the top again.
Actually,
But you're
12,
all gonna come back to the top once you get the.
so we stopped at 12, A, because Dr. Perlmutter said she was going to look at that
She has a
section, so,
homework assignment.
yes.
2 actions.
Yeah, 4, 5, 10, A
So
and
we'll
B.
pick up here.
Yep, so you can take a motion.
Take a motion, make a motion, Ed.
I moved to adjourn.
Second,
Approved, approved.
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 Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay.